Greetings, friends. You are on the channel Military Bulletins, and today we will discuss with you the situation in Ukraine on February 24, 2025. A huge number of events happened today, so let's get started. Today is February 24, 2025. It is reported that it is the southern suburbs that are being cleaned up. Perhaps tomorrow or the day after tomorrow the Ministry of Defense will confirm this information and the first geolocations will appear. If we talk about this section of the front, we understand that a similar picture is taking place here. The Russian side is trying to reach the settlement of Melivoy, as well as to take control of all forest areas or at least most of them within this red line. If this operation is successful, the Russian formations will be able to reduce the distance to the U-07 highway to 4 kilometers and 870 meters from the southeastern side. All this actually creates a cauldron for the AFU grouping. There are regular artillery strikes along the perimeter of the line of contact. Overall, the situation is extremely difficult. The Russian side seeks to inflict maximum fire damage and cause maximum losses on AFU units. For example, over the past 24 hours, the Defense Ministry reported that the Ukrainian side lost about 255 personnel during the fighting at the Sujansky outpost. This means that in order to maintain balance and stability, the AFU needs to transfer another 255 men to this section of the front today. This is arithmetic. The more the Russian side strikes, the more the Ukrainian armed forces need to transfer reinforcements. Every day the cord around the protrusion narrows, the losses grow, and the need for new reserves increases. In this situation, it is hard to believe that the Ukrainian side will be able to hold the Sujansky Bulge until negotiations or any truce begins. There is a high probability that Ukraine will simply not be allowed to withdraw its units from this area. It is still unclear how Zelensky and Desoreskoi will get out of this situation. Perhaps they will try to organize a strike in another direction in order to slow down the pace of the Russian offensive and start withdrawing separate formations. Perhaps they will strike to the west, towards Glushkovo, but the last attempt at an offensive in this area failed at the very beginning, and the AFU suffered significant losses. Nevertheless, one thing is clear: Ukraine is losing territory every day. One day is a few meters around Sudzha. Ukraine does not have a year to hold Sudzha, and probably not even a few months. Every day the neck of this bulge narrows, and the chances of withdrawing units without loss are getting slimmer and slimmer. Next we move to the North Kupiansk direction. Today the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation confirmed that in the course of combat operations the West group of troops managed to clear the settlement of Topoly, which is adjacent to the state border. Perhaps in the near future we should expect an increase in the intensity of military operations in this area in order to cut off the entire northern protrusion, the section of the front between the settlements of Volchansk and Kupiansk. To all appearances, no serious resistance from the AFU is expected here. Now the only question is when to strike at the most opportune time. So far, the moment for an offensive has not yet arrived. Then we move on to the southern, central Kupiansk direction. According to Ukrainian map services, the width of the front is gradually increasing and the Russian army is slowly moving westward towards the Oskol River, already with a broad front. Let's move on to the Seversky section of the front. Today, both pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian cartographers have confirmed the final clearing of Belagorovka. Russian formations already control part of the forest belt, which looks like a comb on the map. The next target of the Russian formations is likely to be the settlements of Grigorovka and Serebryanka. It is possible that in the near future, after a small regrouping, the Russian units will start an active offensive on these settlements. As for Chasov Yar, there have been small changes along the front line today. The footage of objective control from the Russian Federation was published, which recorded how Russian attack aircraft, using motorcycles, developed an offensive along the N-32 highway between Ivanovskoye and Konstantinovka. The footage shows a Russian convoy of motorcyclists moving towards Kostiantynivka under the blows of Ukrainian artillery, mortars, and FPV drones. However, Ukrainian artillerymen failed to stop the advance of Russian troops. Based on this footage, Maps were adjusted and various cartographic sources aligned the front line in the area. A little south of the N32 highway. As far as Toretsk is concerned, there have been no serious advances over the past 24 hours. There is a slight adjustment along the front line published by pro-Russian sources in the area of the settlements of Sherbanovka and Novospaskoye. We are then moving on to the Pokrovsky section of the front. Here in fact the map has long since stopped changing. Despite the restoration of Peskanoy, as well as the main supply lines, movement here has stopped. The Russian side is now entrenching itself and possibly preparing for a further strike towards Sergeyevka. Or it is simply holding its flanks for the time being, while the main units are gradually moving towards the border between Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk region. As for the border, objective control footage was published again today showing the Ukrainian side trying to build defensive lines along the border in freezing conditions and bad weather. However, it is apparently too late to take any action. As they say, a spoon is good for dinner, not 6 kilometers before the front line to try to build dragon's teeth. Perhaps, these same fortifications will be used later against Ukrainian formations. Next we are moving towards the Andreyevsky fortified area and Konstantinovka. The Russian side has moved to a decisive assault on Constantinople. A large number of shots of FPV drone strikes were published today. In general, the fate of this settlement is already predetermined. The Russian side does not seek an instant mop-up, as the task is to preserve the lives of personnel. Therefore, there is no hurry, and the clearing of possible positions is being carried out gradually. All those who have not had time to retreat are being methodically squeezed out. It is possible that this night, between February 24th and 25th, Ukrainian units will make an attempt to break through and get out of the encirclement. However, it will be extremely difficult to do so, as there is open terrain and fields to the west of Constantinople, which will make it difficult to withdraw. Moving northward, various cartographers today note an expansion of the zone of control west of the settlement of Andriivka. The stronghold located in this area has been finally cleared by Russian formations. According to various cartographic data received as early as yesterday, some Russian units managed to gain a foothold in the northeastern part of Alexiivka. However, this information has not yet been confirmed today. The largest scale advance is now being noted in the Velikano-Vosiolovsk direction. Let's see how the map has changed. As recently as yesterday, we observed the formation of a certain pocket, an artillery bag. Also, Russian formations were completing the clearing of a stronghold located northwest of Veliki Novosayolka. Today we see that Russian units have managed to finally level the front line and even gain a foothold on the southeastern outskirts of Privolnoy. In the next 1 to 3 days we can expect the first geolocations from Berlitskoy and Privolnoy. The Ukrainian side is not yet taking active steps to stop the advance of Russian troops. One gets the impression that there is no understanding of the seriousness of the situation. Once Russian units get a foothold on foundations, roofs and buildings, further offensive will be much easier. The more small settlements, such as Volnoy Pali and Shevchenko, are behind the Russian formations, the faster the Russian army will advance. The closest settlement from which the offensive on Privolnoy can be conducted is Vermivka. It is from here and from Neskutchnoy that all offensive operations begin. The distance here is 7 to 8 kilometers, which must be overcome through open fields under the dense fire of Ukrainian artillery and FPV drones. However, once Russian formations gain a foothold in populated areas, the advance will accelerate significantly. This will lead to a faster retreat of Ukrainian units. We will observe the development of events. However, it is obvious that the task is to reach the borders of the region as soon as possible, and then reach the border with Dnipropetrovsk region. Also, the AFU positions in the area of Guliapoli settlement have gradually started to be processed. It is obvious that in case of success and breakthrough of the Ukrainian defense in the southern direction, the hostilities may spill over to the territory of Zaporizhia region. In such a case, there will be virtually no one to hold the front line. We see that the Ukrainian side is not yet taking active steps to stabilize the situation. That's all for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, put likes and have a good day.